Welcome to the Living Proof Podcast. We are back, and today I want to do something special. There's been a little bit of a hiatus because I don't know. I was busy. 2 Sundays ago, I was busy. Last Sunday, I was traveling back home, so I was busy. And here we are this Sunday. So I wanted to talk about, this is going to be video one of a two-part series talking about some Psalms that I have been on my mind for a while. And I say this because I was reading them over break. And while just doing my own personal Bible study on them, I realized that there are heavy correlations between the psalmist that was writing them, which happens to be David, and my life and my past circumstances. So I wanted to go through these psalms because they're very important to me now, and I'm trying to apply them to my life at least a little bit. And this is kind of the start of me getting back into what I used to do with the Lord, which is spend prolonged time with him, just spend time in the Word, see how it applies to my life and stuff like that. I was starting to get back into that during, why does it look like it's gonna rain outside? Wow, that is very not good. Anyway, I was doing that for a while back in senior year of high school, and since then I've still been reading and spending time with God, but it hasn't been as fervently because I was going through a situation back then which was really stressful to me, and the only way I got through it was turning to God and spending as much time with him as possible, because it allowed me to evade or to quell the thoughts in my brain that were stemming towards negativity or towards depression or towards maybe violence. So that was the way I dealt with that in that situation. But now I'm starting to do that again, in the sense that I don't have some situation pushing me towards God. It's just because his glory is that great, which ties into another psalm that I'll get to in part two. But today is part one. And the psalm we're talking about today is Psalm chapter 142. Because I was reading it, and as I was reading some commentary on it, it kind of stuck out how sometimes we go through our situations and we're not really aware of how to handle it, and we don't handle it well. We handle it with ourselves instead of giving it to God first. And so I want to read the passage real quick. Psalm chapter 142 verse 1 reads, "I cry out to the Lord, I plead for the Lord's mercy. I pour out my complaints before him and tell him all my troubles. When I'm overwhelmed, you alone know the way I should turn. Wherever I go, my enemies have set traps for me. I look for someone to come and help me, but no one gives me a passing thought. No one will help me, no one cares a bit what happens to me. Then I pray to you, O Lord. I say, you are my place of refuge. You are all I really want in life. Hear my cry, for I am very low. Rescue me from my persecutors, for they are too strong for me. Bring me out of prison, so I can thank you. The godly will crowd around me, for you are good to me." And diving into every verse is just, I think it's important because you realize how important each section of this psalm is. Like, it's David crying out to God in his time and experience hiding in the cave away from Saul, right? But during this hiding, he cries out, he pleads, he recognizes the difficulties that he's up against, and then he turns to God, then he asks God to hear his cry, then he says what will happen afterwards. And it's like, you go step by step through your situations, and it's a roadmap for how we should navigate our situations, where we come to when our back is essentially against the wall, when we have to hide away in a cave of our own life, whether that be through struggles, through stress, through peer pressure, through situations with our family, through situations with finances, whatever it may back us into a corner. When we feel like we have nothing left, we can turn to God, because even if nobody in this world helps us, God will be the one to help us. But even looking at verse 1, right? "I cry out to the Lord, I plead for the Lord's mercy." Like, David, in this situation, he's not like really under fire from God, essentially. He's under fire from Saul and from all the things around him in the world. But what he sees first and foremost is that the Lord can help him, and that he needs the Lord's mercy in order to get through the situation. A lot of times we look at our worldly situations and we think, oh, I can handle this on my own. I don't need God to deal with this situation. I don't need God to help me through it. But we're failing to see how everything is in fact spiritual, how every situation we come into is in fact spiritual. And so the situation that you may deem not worthy of God's help, or not, you don't need God to get through it, that may be the exact situation that trips you up, or the situation that causes you to stumble, because you're arrogant, you're holding yourself in your own pride and your own ego, and you're not seeing the situation for how it really is. David here is seeing the situation for how it really is, right? I plead for the Lord's mercy. He doesn't say, I plead for my own strength so I can get through it. He doesn't say, I plead for Saul to stop. I plead for the Lord's mercy because he can get me through it. I plead for the Lord's mercy because he can help me through the struggle. Crying out to him is essential, right? And verse 2 just continues to elaborate on that. I pour out my complaints before him and tell him all my troubles, right? I plead for the Lord's mercy. I tell him what I'm going through. I tell him my situation. I tell him all my troubles. And I don't tell other people. I don't tell the world. I don't tell my friends. I tell God, and I tell God first. I wrote down in my notes when I was reading this over break that even in a bad situation, David gives it all to the Lord, even his complaints. He didn't keep his distress to himself to ruminate over. He gave it to God first. And that last line, he gave it to God first, I find it very, at least, I find it very, what's the word I'm looking for? Applicative to my own life, because I will tend to run around and around in circles, ruminating over things and stressing over situations I can't control, rather than just directly going to God first. David got forced into a situation where he was literally running for his life. He had to hide in a cave. And instead of saying, woe is me, instead of ruminating about it, instead of crying himself to sleep, he turned to the Lord and said, God, here are all my complaints. Here are my struggles. Here are my worries. Please spare me with your mercy. Please provide your mercy for me. Please rescue me and deliver me. He's not saying God owes him anything. He's not saying that God ought to deliver him, or else what could you threaten God with? I don't know, but I'm saying he's not trying to threaten God. He's not saying God owes him anything. He's begging the Lord. He's pleading for the Lord for his mercy, for his compassion, for his rescuing, as he has done in past times, right? When we deal with our situations, when we deal with our past, and when we deal with our afflictions, whatever they may be, it's easy to look at them and say, I believe that God should be good to me because I don't know, I've been good to him my entire life. I go to church all Sundays and I pray and I read my Bible and blah, blah, blah. But the thing is that we have to first approach him in a mindset of humility, that God doesn't need to do any of these things for us. He doesn't need us, but he wants us around. He wants us in his presence. He created us to have a relationship with us. And so understanding that the God of the universe, the creator of everything, the Alpha and the Omega, the was, is, and is to come, he wants a relationship with you. That puts me in a sense of, wow, this amazing being who has created all these things, including me, wants to have a personal relationship with me. The least I can do is spend time with him, is commune with him, is build a relationship with him so that I understand his voice and he understands mine. And that when situations like this come up, I can ask him for help because he knows me and I know him. Oh, my highlighters just fell out. Oopsie. But he knows me and I know him, and I know he's not going to fail me. So I can call on him. I can plead for his mercy. I can tell him my complaints because I know he can handle it. Because I've built up that relationship to the point where I understand him, where I understand where he's coming from, where I understand who he is as a person. I had this one situation. We're going to say it was in 7th grade. And I had beef with a friend. I don't remember what it was about. I don't remember how we started it. But all I remember from that altercation is the hurtful words I said to him at the end. And then he shoved me on the ground. And since then, those words have been on replay in my head ever since that moment. And to me, that is not the highlight of our relationship. Like we're still friends. We still talk. We're still good friends. But that to me will always stick out in my head because it was like, how could I say I'm friends with this person? How could I say I'm on good terms with this person? How could I say I'm in a good relationship with this person and then go around and say those words to them, those hurtful, harmful, and venomous words at some point in time, and then turn around and say, yeah, they're my best friend. Like, how could I do that? I can't say that. I have to uplift them if I want to be, if they're truly my friend, I'm going to want to uplift them. I'm going to want to encourage them. I'm going to want to help them. And in that situation, I did not help him. I hindered him. That's not what true friendship looks like. True friendship looks like helping them and reaching out to somebody, providing caring words and encouragement and assistance in times of need. So when God wants to be our friend, he's not doing what I did to my friend back in the day. He's not calling us names or pushing us on the ground or shoving us or making us mad to the point where we're throwing tables or flipping chairs or whatever, right? He's not doing that. He is saying that he wants to have a relationship with us and he wants to help us. He's trying to be a good friend to us, and we have to understand that we're not owed that kindness. Like my friend, he wasn't supposed to be nice to me. I made him mad, right? I wasn't being a good friend, and in turn, he reacted for it. It's not like I'm being bad to him. I'm gonna have a bad relationship with him and then expect him to come help me out when things are going terribly for me. No, it goes both ways. I need to spend time with him and be kind to him and understand his character to know that he will help me in those times. And David here is essentially, he's saying that is what he's doing. He's pouring out his complaints. He's telling him his troubles. He's spending time with God and letting him know his situation so that God can best effectively help him, because he knows God is a helper. He knows God's going to come through. So he tells him everything as it is, how it is, so that God can help him in the best way possible. He gives it all up so that God can take it all away, kind of thing. And that's what I like about that section of the passage. Going into verse 3, he says, when I am overwhelmed, you alone know the way that I should turn. I have this a reference to Job 33:10. Let me look it up real quick. Job 33:10, which says, I'm on the wrong page. I was a page away. 33:10 says, God is picking a quarrel with me, and he considers me his enemy. Am I in the right verse? Hold on. I might have fibbed on that one, man. Hold on. Is that not what I wrote down? Oh, 23:10. I can't read my own handwriting. Wow, that's very sad. I need to get better handwriting, I guess. All right, Job 23:10. Bear with me for 1 second. All right, 23:10. It says, but he knows where I'm going, and when he tests me, I will come out as pure as gold. And David in this section is saying that God knows him, that God knows his heart, and he essentially knows where he's going. So in the same way that Job, we all know the story of Job, what happened to Job. Like, he lost everything. He lost his family, his possessions, his livestock, his clothes. He lost his health, and he didn't curse God, but he questioned, why is this happening to me? What did I do to God? And God was essentially testing him. He knows him, and he was testing him that he would come out pure as gold. And so when David is saying, when I'm overwhelmed, you alone know the way I should turn, you know me, you know my heart, and you know that when I go through this situation, you know where I should turn to come out like gold. When we go through our trials and when we go through our struggles, it's important to understand that God's the one that knows where we should go, and God's the one that knows what direction we should turn. If we don't listen to his advice, if we listen to somebody else's advice, right, we're going to turn into a direction that is not from him. And instead of being purified by that fire, we're going to be burned by that fire. We're going to be, as many people say, and as I say, we're going to be cooked. We're going to be cooked, bro. Like, you can't turn away from God's guidance and expect to get through the same situation the same way. You can't turn to a certain, let's say if we're playing a video game, right? I know there's been so many video games where you're playing a not turn-based, but you're playing a turn-based game, you're playing a decision-based game, blah, blah, blah. And everyone knows the famous QuickTime event, right? An input command pops up on the screen, and you have to click that input command. Otherwise, the game will tell you that you failed the mission, or the decision will be bad, or you'll blow up and until dawn, or whatever, right? And so when we're looking at this situation here and seeing how we're purified by fire, and the Lord tells us whatever way we should turn, when the Lord tells us, that's essentially a QuickTime event popping up, right? God will tell us where to go, and it's not essentially a QuickTime event because he gives us time to listen to his command. But when it pops up, we got to listen. We got to press that command. Otherwise, the bad outcome will happen. And we'll wonder, well, why did this happen? Except like a video game, we can't go back and make the right decision. We can't play it again. What happens, happens. So if we turn away from the Lord, if we fail to hit that QuickTime event, so to speak, we're going to be way worse off than if we had just listened to God and his advice. When I am overwhelmed, you alone know the way that I should turn. When I'm overwhelmed, there will be buttons popping up all over the screen, but only the one that is directed towards you is the one I should press. Only the one that says follow God is the one I should turn to, right? Because every other button is going to lead me in a path that doesn't lead to the right ending of the game, if that makes sense. So when we're looking at these situations that happen in our life, we need to understand that there's God's path and following him, and there's the world's path and following every other option. It only really falls down into those two categories. There's only those two categories, because you can only follow God and not follow God. Whether you follow money, whether you follow the world, whether you follow your father, whether not your heavenly father, your actual living father, whether you follow yourself, whether you follow your friends, whether you follow people you see on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, you are following the world. You are following people that are in the world. You are following something that is of the world. You are following the world. But if you're following God, you're following something that's not of the world. And so you're going to be able to do things through his spirit that are not of the world, because God gives you the strength, and his strength is otherworldly. You can't overcome worldly things with worldly things. That's like trying to fight fire with fire. And as everyone on the planet has said, that doesn't work out really well. You can't fight fire with fire. You can't fight something in one dimension cannot overcome something that is also in one dimension. They'll just butt heads. If you ever looked at two lines going on the same line, they're going to cross and bump, right? They're going to hit each other because there's no other dimension for it to go around, right? So if we need to overcome something in one dimension, we're going to need a second dimension to overcome it. And in the same sense, if we're trying to overcome something in the world, which is this 1D, we're going to need something that's outside of the world, which is the 2D, which is God's power, that we need to overcome it. And so when we look at our life and knowing the way we should go, we need to understand that God has the power to overcome what is of this world. And the way we should go is following that power. We should go along that 2D path instead of going along the 1D path, because then we're just going to butt heads with the world. We're going to be at quarrel with people. We're going to be at quarrel with the things around us. We're going to be at quarrel with everything that is already, like, our fight isn't against them. 1D and 1D, you're butting heads against things that our fight isn't really against. Because we fight not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, right? We're not fighting against other human beings. We're fighting against sin and temptation and the devil. And that's in another dimension as well. So if we're only in 1D, if we're only seeing our fellow man, we're not seeing the whole picture. Which is even more reason to follow God, because if you're not seeing the full picture yourself, he is. We already know he's not in this dimension. We already know he's seeing the whole picture for what it is. His ways is not our ways, and his thoughts are not our thoughts. They are all higher. And so when we're looking at him, when we're thinking about following his ways, when we're overwhelmed and thinking about whose direction to follow, we should follow the one that's already seen it all and knows how to get around, that knows how to navigate this battle. Because it's not us against us. It's us on his side against the side that is the devil, right? And so when we combat that, when we realize that, it makes it a whole lot easier to pick which direction we go. Because it's not against, oh, should I pick money or should I pick power? Should I pick fame? It's, should I pick the world or should I pick God? And one is clearly more significant than the other, as David writes in this path, right? Because God alone knows the way we should go. Right. Verse 3 continues then, wherever I go, my enemies have set traps for me. And this is what I spent a lot of time on, this verse 3, as well as verse 4, because verse 4 reads, I look for someone to come and help me, but no one gives me a passing thought. No one will help me. No one cares a bit what happens to me, right? And I say this because as I was reading a commentary, it mentioned how this ties back into 1 Samuel chapter, I have it in my notes here, 1 Samuel chapter 18, verses 17 through 29. And I wrote down with my notes, people will always set up traps for the godly. David, however, approached with the mindset of humility, bringing these cries and pleas to his refuge, the Lord. And so I say that because if we go to 1 Samuel 18, I have it bookmarked here. If we go to this passage, we'll find that David was on the verge of doing something that is seen as pretty honorable, right? We'll read verse 17 here. One day Saul said to David, I am ready to give you my oldest daughter, Merab, as your wife. But first you must prove yourself to be a real warrior by fighting the Lord's battles. For Saul thought, I'll send him out against the Philistines and let them kill him rather than doing it myself. Who am I, and what is my family in Israel that I should be the king's son-in-law? David exclaimed. My father's family is nothing. So when the time came for Saul to give his daughter Merab in marriage to David, he gave her instead to Adriel, a man from Meholah. In the meantime, Saul's daughter, Michal, had fallen in love with David. Is it Michal? Michelle? I want to say Michelle. And Saul was delighted when he heard about it. Here's another chance to see him killed by the Philistines, Saul said to himself. But to David he said, today you have a second chance to become my son-in-law. Then Saul told his men to say to David, the king really likes you, and so do we. Why don't you accept the king's offer and become his son-in-law? When Saul's men said these things to David, he replied, how can a poor man from a humble family afford the bride price for the daughter of a king? When Saul's men reported this back to the king, he told them, tell David that all I want for the bride price is 100 Philistine foreskins. Vengeance on my enemies is all I really want. But what Saul had in mind was that David would be killed in the fight. David was delighted to accept the offer. Before the time expired, he and his men went out and killed 200 Philistines. Then David fulfilled the king's requirement by presenting all their foreskins to him. So Saul gave his daughter Michal to David to be his wife. When Saul realized that the Lord was with David and how much his daughter Michal loved him, Saul became even more afraid of him, and he remained David's enemy for the rest of his life. I want to just immediately touch on that last verse. Saul became even more afraid of him, and he remained David's enemy. I was reading Psalms right before 142. Is it 141 or is it 140? It's 141, right? 141 verse 9 and 10 say, "Keep me from the traps they have set for me, from the snares of those who do wrong. Let the wicked fall into their own nets, but let me escape." And so I say that because from the looks of it, it kind of seems like Saul fell into his own net here. He was trying to set a trap for David so that he would fall to his own death and that Saul wouldn't have to kill him. I don't know if he was trying to be honorable with that, which is another point I'll touch on later, but he was trying to essentially set him up to die so he wouldn't have to do it. But God was providing for David, and David was also approaching with the mindset of humility. He wasn't trying to do it all on his own strength. So he was like, I can't do this. Who am I that I would date a king's daughter? Like, I'm a lowly guy. My family's nothing, bro. Like, what do you want from me? And so he gave him a random requirement. And David, which is crazy because he told David to go out and fight Philistines, right? David's biggest feat back in the day was fighting a Philistine, a giant, mind you, Goliath, and killing him. So this is a very good example of them trying to set up traps in areas where we can be so very prideful sometimes. Like David, he had the opportunity to be like, 100 Philistines? Mind you, I killed the biggest Philistine ever. I killed the giant. Biggest Philistine ever. I wouldn't necessarily say that's true, but Goliath was a giant, right? He was intimidating everybody on the battlefield. David comes up, chucks a stone at him, and he's knocked dead. That would be a feat that would, I'm not gonna lie, my ego might have been boosted a little bit back in the day. If I was like, oh yeah, I killed Goliath. I can definitely handle 100 Philistines. Like, that is a temptation that he could have easily fallen into. And it just goes to show how sometimes the world will tempt us with things that we've already succeeded in with God's grace, right? Mind you, because David did not do that on his own power. He did it with God's help. But where we're tempted to fall into that trap is when someone presents us with a challenge that seems similar or seems the same level of difficulty. We were like, I got through it before, so I can get through it again. If we don't remain humble, we fail to see that God was with us before, and he might not be with us if we don't regard him first and consult him first and talk to him first and give him our troubles first, which is what David was doing in the cave, right? And so in this situation, David's immediate response is not, I'm going to kill 100 Philistines because I'm that guy, I'm him. He was delighted because it's like, you want me to conquer enemies that God has already put in my way? Let me talk with God, let me confer with God. And then he proceeded to kill them with his men. Mind you, he didn't even do it alone. He and his men completed it in a time frame, and he killed 200 Philistines, right? He did not challenge it alone. He had his men, and he had God on his side. Because already before that, he was saying, who am I that I would date a king's daughter? He wasn't saying, I deserve this. He was like, who am I? He was maintaining a mindset of humility before that even happened. And so Saul, trying to trap David, fell into his own trap. Because not only did he fail to kill David, but he had to give David his wife. And she loved him to death, so she wasn't going to break up with him at all. And so he lost a daughter to the dude that he hates, which made him hate him even more. So he fell into his own trap, and he didn't even realize it. I was reading that, and I'm like, wow, that's so crazy. First of all, that he would be tempted in something that is an area of his expertise. David was a fighter, bro. He was a fighter. He knew fights like that. And so 100 Philistines, you could be real tempted to be egotistical and prideful and say, yeah, I could do that, no sweat. But Saul tempting him in that is also an opportunity for him to give it to God and be humble, to express humility, to express, I can't do this without God. God, please help me. I understand nobody else is coming to help me, which refers back to verse 4, right? Verse 4 in 142 saying, I look for someone to come and help me, but no one gives me a passing thought. No one will help me. No one cares a bit what happens to me. Saying no one cares a bit what happens to me is a lot like Saul's men kind of going along with what Saul was saying. He was saying, Saul told his men to say to David, the king really likes you, and so do we. Why don't you accept the king's offer and become his son-in-law? They said that to him with no sweat whatsoever. No worry, no issue. They were like, say this to David. All right, bet. They didn't care about, what if David doesn't like this? What if this is a trap for David to die? They weren't trying to help him. They were trying to appease Saul. Mind you, Saul was in power. Yeah, Saul had the power to kill them on the spot, probably if they refused. But even so, if they cared about David more than they cared about Saul, if they cared about righteousness and upholding the truth, which God was trying to uphold, rather than upholding the lies that Saul was trying to actually, maybe they didn't even know that Saul was being despicable about it, because he said, Saul told his men to say to David, the king really likes you, and so do we. Why don't you accept the king's offer and become a son-in-law? I don't know for certain if it says that. I don't know for certain if Saul went behind the scenes and said, this is what's going to happen, right? We're going to tell David this. You guys are going to tell David this. But in reality, I'm just trying to get him set up to be killed. So we want him to go into this battle so that every single one of him and his men die. That's the plan here. I don't know if he went and said that, but I think it can be inferred that they weren't really unaware of Saul's ill intentions. But maybe they weren't. Who knows? I don't know. Regardless, there was nobody there to help David in the moment, right? He had God, and that was it. Because nobody else is really there. And even now, in the cave that he's running from Saul, nobody's there. Jonathan, his best buddy, can't extend a limb for him because he's going to get his head cut off if he tries to help David. And all these people that were sitting in Saul's courts, they're not helping him either. So even if they weren't trying to deliberately kill him now, in the future, when David's on the run, they're not helping him then either. So it's like a chain of events where if they could have solved this and stopped this now, if they were on the side of righteousness and justice now, they wouldn't have had to be on the side of righteousness and justice in a more perilous situation later. And that's kind of God's grace and God's generosity. He's trying to save us from things down the line, which might be exactly why David's asking for his mercy then, so he doesn't have to go through a more perilous situation later on. Sometimes God provides us with a situation that, yeah, it seems like a bad choice between picking the side of justice and not being liked, or picking the side of the world, picking the side of lies, picking the side of deceit, and being kind of liked by people for now. But then we don't see down the line that situation will lead to a much bigger decision, which will have a much higher stakes. And we don't see that until it's too late. And now we're like, man, if I just listened down the line. How many times have we said before, if I had just listened before, or if I had just made that decision before, if I had just been more wise a little while ago, our life would be made so much easier, right? And this is God trying to do this for us. Sometimes we have to make decisions that we don't really like. We don't really approve of the options that we have, or rather, we don't approve of the results of one of the options. But God is calling us to that because he knows he can handle the situations. And so like David in 142, we take our complaints to him. We don't hold our complaints to ourselves. We don't grudge. We don't ruminate about it. We don't get mad at the world. We say, Lord, I give my complaints to you. I lament to you. I grieve to you. I mourn to you. And I give these concerns and these questions and these frustrations to you because you can handle them. That's how we deal with our frustrations, and that's how we deal with our problems when the world isn't helping us. Because right after that, in verse 5, David literally says, but then I pray to you. If I can find it. I don't even need to find it. Then I pray to you, O Lord. I say, you are my place of refuge. You are all I really want in life. You are my place of refuge. You are all I really want in life. Let's just take a second to think it. You are my refuge. You are all I really want in life. Because he said, man, I don't got anybody on my side. My enemies are setting traps for me. Things are just going crazy. Then I pray to you because you're all I really want. Like all those things, cool. But then I just pray to you because you're the thing that matters. You're the thing that keeps me safe at the end of the day. And it's like, if I know you're keeping me safe, what do I have to fear the world for? What do I have to fear these things that I just mentioned? What do I have to fear the complaints I just offered up to you? Because now that I know that they're in your hands, there's nothing else that can stop me. There's nothing else that can hinder your plan because I've given all the complaints and all my concerns and all my issues to you. And so when I'm going into this, then I pray to you. These things are happening. These bad things are happening. Okay, let me go pray. These bad things are coming on me. Let me go pray. These bad things are happening. Let me go to my place of refuge because that's all I really want in life. I don't want to overcome these issues. I don't want to be famous. I don't want to be liked by the people that are hunting me down. I want to be with God. And so let me go pray to him and give him my complaints and give him my issue because he's my place of refuge. That's so good. That is so good to understand. David he wasn't even really worrying. Like he had complaints, he had concerns, but he wasn't even really worried because he's like, then I just pray to God. It's all going to be okay because I give it to the one who's in control of it all. I don't even have to worry. I don't have to worry. I don't have to stress because you're all I really want. You're my place of refuge. I know that when I turn to you, you're going to help me out. You provided for me my entire life. You can provide one more time because I know you're going to help me out. Because we on that one-to-one conversation level where I can understand what you're saying and you can understand what I'm saying. And I know your character, you know my character. And so you know that what I really desire down here in the heart is you. And so when I'm thinking about my life, when I'm offering up prayers to you, when I'm telling you my concerns and my complaints, it's not going to be out of a place of, you owe me these things. It's going to be out of a place of, Lord, please rescue me and deliver me because you're all I really want. These things are happening to me. This world is attacking me. Lord, deliver me. It's like arrows are all coming this way and we're just looking up. We're just looking at God the whole time. And he going to guide us because we're supposed to look up. We're on this planet to give God glory, to look at him and reflect him to the people around us. And so when we're looking up, God's going to make sure we can keep looking up. But if we're looking around and we're trying to do things on our own power, he going to look at us and be like, okay, you want to do that on your own power? Go ahead. You're going to see how it's going to work out. You're going to fail. And then we turn back up to him. He cleans us a path again, and we can keep looking at him while walking forward because we know that everything around us going to be blocked by the shield of faith. And that's why you have the armor of God to block the fiery arrows of the devil. And faith is truly trusting in things that we don't see because when we look up, we don't see the Lord immediately. We don't look up and actually see him there. But if we're looking up and we're looking at him and not looking at where we're going stressed out because tomorrow's worries are for tomorrow, we know that our faith will shield us from all these arrows that the devil's throwing at us, and we don't even have to worry. Because we got that faith, we got the word, we got the breastplate of righteousness, we got the helmet of salvation, we got... Yeah, I don't even... The other ones are important, but that surrounds my point, because it's just like having all these things, not only the armor of God, but a sound mind, a humble heart, like David is having in this prayer. It's just so, it encapsulates everything you need to walk this life and truly get through struggles and trials. Dude's on the run for his life, by the way, and he's saying, all I really care about is God. He could die at any moment. Someone could walk into this cave and find him and just kill him right there and then. And he's like, all you really care about is God. You're my place of refuge. As long as I'm praying to you, as long as you have my situation, I know that everything's going to work out fine. He's not even, he's more concerned with what is going on between him and God than him and the world. He's more concerned with the gates of heaven than the gates of that cave. Like it's just crazy. The level of faith, the level of discipline in both turning to God in your situations and just blocking out the world and not trying to ruminate on issues is just astounding, right? I have written down that the world overlooks the oppressed, but God doesn't. David didn't lose hope after the world failed to show. Jesus understands our oppression, and so he stands with us in a place of refuge and justice. David gets oppressed by the world and he turns to God. He doesn't lose hope. And we have the opportunity to do the same thing as him and not lose hope. It's so easy to look around and see people getting oppressed and to see what's going on in our state, our day to day, especially with a war starting in Iran against, I don't know what, every day I say, I don't know what this country is doing, but I am not in charge. So whatever. I don't want to be in charge anyway. I want God to be in charge. But it's just like, we see the world and we see people getting oppressed. We see people dying. We see suffering. We see homelessness. We see poverty. We see hunger. We see starvation. We see littering. We see pollution. All these things. And the people that don't deserve, the people that are getting oppressed, the people that are suffering through these things, it may seem like there's no hope for them. But David went through the same thing. Jesus went through the same thing. And where were their hopes set on? The Lord. And that's how we can get through our oppressed situations. I saw a post on Instagram one time about, there was an artist who made a drawing that got a lot of controversy because she was saying, oh, you're not worried about, some random character was saying to her OC, her original character, that you're not worried about the current state of the world right now, you're not freaking out. And she was like, no, you know why? Because Jesus is my hope. And they were saying in the comments that she was just reducing it down to, she's reducing other people's struggles or belittling other people's situations because Jesus is my rock and my salvation, and that's how you should get through your situation. And I don't think her point was that every other situation is just so incomparable to my joy that I have with Christ. No, she was providing a way to understand where she gets her hope. And I think that's important because David does it here. Jesus does it in the garden. Not only in the garden, but throughout his entire life. He points to the Father the entire time, mind you. And afterwards, he points to the Spirit that will be received by all of us, and then just goes back to heaven to the Father, because he did his work of the Father. He was looking to the Father the whole time, and that's where he got his hope. And so that girl that made that drawing on Instagram, she wasn't saying, oh, your guys' situation doesn't matter because I have God, and that's all I need. No, she's saying you too can have joy and peace because God is for everybody. Jesus is here for everybody. He died for everybody. And so that hope is for everybody. And so the same joy and hope and peace that I have is the same joy and hope and peace that you can have in your situation, whatever it may be. And that's the same thing David is saying here. He's saying that you are my place of refuge. You are all I really want in life. And we can have that same cry in every area of our life. Verse 6 says, hear my cry, for I am very low. Rescue me from my persecutors, for they are too strong for me. 7 continues, bring me out of prison so I can thank you. The godly will crowd around me, for you are good to me. Right? He says, I like how he says in verse 6, rescue me from my persecutors, for they are too strong for me. And I wrote down here, but they're not too strong for God. He said, they're too strong for me. They're not too strong for you. Because every situation we can encounter, it might be too strong for us. It's never going to be too strong for God. He's always going to make a way out of no way because he's got that power. He's got the strength to do it, right? And he has the strength for everybody. It's not just for me. It's not just for David here. And it's not just for Jesus. It's for everybody that calls on his name and truly has a pure heart after God, right? Blessed are those pure in heart, for they... Let me read that actually before I get the wrong beatitude. Matthew 5. Hold on. Blessed... Oh, word. God blesses those who are humble, for they will inherit the whole earth. God blesses those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. God blesses those whose hearts are pure, for they will see God. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God, right? And so David's not saying that he is the only one that can have that God is for, that you're my place of refuge, you're the only one that I need, and you're only for me. He didn't say that, no. He said, you are my place of refuge, you are all I want in life. And this is the same God that died on the cross, right? And he didn't just die for David. There was a sinner right next to him that made the buzzer beater of all time and believed in the Lord as he was dying. So if it were just for David, we wouldn't be here right now, and we wouldn't have grace of Jesus Christ, who died on the cross for all of our sins, right? And so Jesus is for everybody. And the way we see him is by being like David, who is pure in heart, who only wants the Lord, who says, you are all I really want in life. That is what pure means, to have one. When we think of pure elements, we think of pure elements, which are in chemistry, right? And a pure element has nothing else in it. It's not a compound. It's nothing else. It's like if I were to just say oxygen. Oxygen by itself, chemistry majors don't come at me. I'm pretty sure oxygen by itself is just a pure element, right? There's nothing mixed with it. Like CO2, carbon dioxide, that's a mix, right? That's not just the pure element of oxygen. So when we're talking about just oxygen, it's pure. There's nothing else with it. There's nothing else mixed. And so to be pure in heart means there's only one thing in your heart. There's nothing else mixed in there. And to be like David, to have a heart after God, means you have to be pure in heart and only want the Lord. That's what David is exemplifying here. You are all I really want in life. He only wants one thing. And David is exemplifying how to be pure in heart. And so when we want to be pure in heart, we can look to David and understand that this is what he's talking about when he says, all I want is to dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This is all I really want. To be with the refuge, to be with the guy that hears my cry, for I am very low, that rescues me from my persecutors, that brings me out of prison, that has the godly crowd around me, for you are good to me, right? And I think that verse 7 is also very important. Godly crowding around. I wrote down here, the purpose of deliverance is praise. It is not for us, nor is it for our betterment. David simply recites that it is one, for the glory of God, and two, so the righteous can share in the expression of glory. The godly crowd around him, and they're not going to crowd around him and be like, oh, wow, David, you're so great. No, they're going to be like, wow, God did such a good thing with you. Praise the Lord. They are gathering around so they can share in the expression of God's glory. And God brings us out of these situations so that we can express his glory, so that we can praise him. Right? David says, bring me out of prison so I can thank you. He doesn't say, bring me out of prison so I can trample on my enemies. Bring me out of prison so I can receive $1 million. Bring me out of prison so I can become the president of the United States. He doesn't say that. He says, bring me out of prison so I can thank you. The purpose of deliverance in David's mind, being pure heart towards God, is praising God, is thanking God, is delivering him his due glory, right? Because there is only the one thing we have to do in this Lord, on this planet, is deliver the glory of the Lord, reflect the glory of the Lord, reflect his light, reflect his presence, be examples of God. And that all has to do with giving him glory. So when we give God his glory, we thank him, we praise him, we reflect him, we talk about him to other people, we evangelize, we read the scripture, we read what other people say in sermons or in commentaries, we spend time in prayer, we spend time worshiping with songs, because these are all ways to give glory to God for the purpose of giving glory to God. We don't do these things for the purpose of bettering ourselves or lifting ourselves up or becoming a great holy saint on this world so that people can look up to us and be like, wow, that guy's a really good person. No, we should only be looking up towards God when we do these things. And that's what David's heart posture is in this song. He doesn't look at the world around him and get overwhelmed. I mean, he does, but he says right here, when he's overwhelmed, you alone know the way I should turn. So he even turns to God when he's overwhelmed. He's not looking at the world. He's not looking at these situations and letting them control him. He turns to the Lord who knows where he should go, who can rescue him, who can deliver him out of prison so that he can thank him. So the path here, the path of this psalm, right, of 142, David gets into a situation. He cries out to the Lord. He pours out his complaints before him. He knows that he's overwhelmed, and yet he recognizes that God is the only way. He knows the only way to turn, right? He recognizes that wherever he goes, his enemies set traps for him. He recognizes that in the situation he's in right now, nobody's there to help him. Nobody's out sticking out a limb out for him because he's by himself. He's alone. He lists these complaints. He lists his desperation. He lists his dependence. And then he says, I pray to God because you are my refuge and you are all I really want. He goes into the situation, lists out his complaints, and then says, God, you are all I really want. Please rescue me. Please deliver me so that I can thank you. And that's really important because this is a model for our entire life. If you think about it, every day we're faced with struggles. Every day we're faced with situations that back us into a cave like David was here. It may not be literal death. It may not be literal people hunting us down. It may be an exam we have the next week. It may be a project that we have coming up on Thursday. It may be asking a girl out on a date. It may be trying to invest in this business opportunity that may cost you 50% of your stock shares. Whatever it may be, there are situations that back us into a corner, right? And we can choose to ruminate about those on our own, or we can choose to be like David here and give them to God because God is all we really need. Having that pure heart is essential for becoming like this and living out this psalm, because it's important to understand that without God, we can do no good thing. Without God, we have no strength, we have no purpose, we have no drive. Ecclesiastes said, without God, things are meaningless. There is no meaning without God. And so when we're living this life, when we're going through these circumstances, we need to understand that our minds and our hearts and our posture needs to be fixed towards God at all times. Otherwise, we can't get through a situation like this. Otherwise, in 1 Samuel 18, when our Sauls come up and try to tempt us with things we've done well in, we're going to initially go about it like, wow, I did good in this before, I can do it again. And then we're going to fall victim to our pride and our ego, and then we're going to fall. Because we're not regarding God first. We don't have a heart after God. We have a heart after ourselves and boosting ourselves up. And so we're not going to see where the enemy is trying to trap us, and we're not going to be able to avoid it by focusing on God. I want to highlight how in 1 Samuel 18, David was not thinking about, how can Saul trap me right now? Or what is Saul trying to do by offering me his daughter? He wasn't even worried about that. He was like, who am I that I can date a king's daughter? He was so focused on his humility and his posture in regards to God and in regards to the hierarchy that God has placed over him that he didn't even realize that he was being trapped. And he just stepped out of it without even regarding the trap itself. He was only looking at God, and God just protected him from the trap altogether. He went around it like swerving around a pothole. And that's what we need to realize, that things will come up in this life. And so we feel like we need to always be looking ahead, always looking at the ground, always watching where we walk, because we need to avoid those traps. But if we look at God, you alone know the way I should turn. So only by looking at him can we truly avoid the traps of life, can we truly avoid the potholes of our walk. That's the only way we can do that. And David exemplifies that so well without even knowing it, because he just avoids the trap altogether without even trying to do so. I guarantee if he was trying to avoid a trap, he probably would have fell into it hook, line, and sinker. Because the trap may have been tied to his ego. It may have been, Saul's probably thinking I can't kill 100 Philistines. So let me go try and do this on my own power, because I can certainly kill 100 Philistines. And then maybe he would have died. Maybe he would have got caught in Saul's trap, and maybe David would have never been king, and Jesus would have never been born, and all these things would have never happened. Like the heart posture that we need to have from David exemplifies so clearly here. And that's what I really wanted to highlight today, because it's so powerful to look at that and realize that he was so focused on God that none of these things even really registered to him. But now he's looking at it and like, wow, these people really set traps for me all the way back in the day. And I didn't even realize it until now. But Lord, I know you're going to help me through it, because you are all that I need and you are my refuge. And so today I want to encourage you guys to be like David, and to encourage you to have a heart posture that is truly after God, to have a heart posture that is truly exemplary of only needing him, only wanting him, and only keeping your eyes on him, so that when you're focusing on him, he tells you where to walk, and you don't have to worry about the traps and the potholes of life, because you can go around them when you're looking at him, because he alone knows the way you should go. So I want to encourage you today that if you're going through a situation, if you're going through a struggle, if you're going through a trial, just turn your eyes toward God, and he will guide you exactly where you need to be. He will rescue you, and then throw up some praise. Thank him for it. Give him glory for it, because it is by his power that we have anything we have today. He is truly the reason we're alive, and his grace is the only reason we get to live day by day. His mercy is the only reason we get to live day by day. And so that, recognizing that and thanking him for that, truly builds a sense of awe and humility that David can have in this passage, and that builds our heart posture to be pure of heart towards God. And so that's what I wanted to talk about in this psalm. Next week, I will be talking about Psalm 147, and that ties into another psalm, which I will also talk about next week. So, yeah, that is it. Good to be back on campus. I hope you guys had a great spring break. I know I did. I spent the entirety of it working on a project that is unfortunately due Thursday, as I mentioned earlier. But, yeah, I'm happy. I'm excited. I can't wait to get back to my life, and I hope that God will guide you all through yours and through the rest of this week. So with that is all I got for today. Yeah, take care, stay blessed, and have a good week. Oh, I'm so hot. Oh, why is it so toasty in this apartment? Why is it so toasty in this apart, bro? I didn't put my thing back. It's like every time I come back, someone changed the temperature in here, and then I have to come back to incineration. Like, man. It's okay, though, because I turned to the Lord. Hey.